As we approach the bus, I am checking to see if it is leaning from one side to the other, if there are any hazards around the bus, any new dents, scratches, or vandalism on the bus. I would document that. I am checking the lights, the clearance, green, yellow, red, turn signals, four ways, headlights. All the lenses are clear, and cracked or broken, and the screws are tight. The lettering and the reflective stickers are not peeling or missing. The mirror mounts and brackets, mounts and brackets on all the mirrors are tight. They're not bent or broken. The screws and bolts are tight. There is no oil, fuel, coolant, or grease laying under the bus. So there's no leaks. I'm going to release the latches. These are the hood latches. They're not cracked or broken, and they release freely. The hood itself opens easily, and the hinges on the inside here are not cracked, broken, and their screws are also tight. We'll move to the inside of the bus here, and this is the hinge here. I'm going to look at the coolant and the power steering reservoir. The caps are tight, they're not cracked, broken, leaking. The nuts and bolts are present and tight. The hoses and clamps are not cut, frayed, and they're present and tight. The dipsticks have to read between half and full. Oil I check daily, and the transmission is checked weekly with the engine running. The fuel pump, power steering pump, and air compressor are gear operated. They're not cracked, broken, or leaking. Their nuts and bolts are present and tight. All of their fittings and clamps are tight. Their hoses are not cracked, frayed, or cut. The fan blade moves freely. There are no fins missing, cracked, or broken. The nuts and bolts are present and tight. The radiator is not leaking. Nuts and bolts are present and tight. The upper and lower radiator hose is not cut, frayed, or leaking, and its clamps are present and tight. Steering shaft is not cracked or broken or bent. There's nothing cut in the U-bolts or U-joints, and the nuts and bolts are present and tight. Steering box or gearbox is not cracked, broken, or leaking. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. The hoses and fittings are not cut, cracked, or missing, and they're tight. The pitman arm, drag link, steering knuckle, tie rod, and tie rod end are not cracked, broken, or missing. Their nuts and bolts are present and tight. Their castle nuts and cotter keys on each spot are present and tight. Spring hanger and shackle are not cracked or broken. Nuts and bolts are present and tight. The spring leaves are not cracked or broken, not misaligned or missing. The U-bolts are not cracked or broken. Their nuts are present and tight. The axle is not cracked or broken or bent. The shock is not cracked, broken, leaking. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. Its mount is tight to the frame. The frame is not cracked, broke, or bent. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. And I would check that I stop about every 5 feet in both directions to make sure that the frame is not welded when all the nuts and bolts are tight. The brake hose or line and the ABS line are not cracked, cut, broke, missing, and their fittings and clamps are present and tight. Brake chamber is not cracked, broken, leaking. It's not rusted. Nuts and bolts are present and tight. Push rod and slack adjuster are not bent or broken. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. There is no more than 1 inch of plate at a 90-degree angle. The wheel seal is not cracked, broken, or leaking. Its bolts are tight. The brake drum is not illegally welded. It has no less than 1/4 inch of lining on the pads, and it's not cracked or broken. I go to the tire, the ICD. My inflation is checked at the valve stem, where the cap is present with a tire gauge. The tire itself is not cut, cracked, bulging. It's got even tread, and it has to have 4/32 of depth or more. My rim is not cracked or broken. It's not illegally welded. My lug nuts are tight, and there are no rust trails. They're all present. The hub seal is not cracked or broken or leaking. Its bolts are tight. The mud flap is not missing, cut, and its bolts are tight. Electrical panel opens freely. Its hinges are not cracked or broken. The nuts and bolts are present and tight. Fuses are all tight in their spots. The wiring is not cut or frayed, and they're tight in their mounts as well. I have more fuses stored on board.
Nice bus.
This is the battery box. It opens freely. The hinge is not cracked or broken, and its bolts are tight. The batteries are not leaking. The mounts are tight. The strap, clamp, and tray catch are not cracked or broken or missing, and their nuts and bolts are present and tight. Stop arm opens freely. The stop sign is not bent or broken. It's tight in its mount. Nuts and bolts and screws are all tight there. The lenses on it, the turn signal, and the clearance lights are not cracked or broken, and their screws are tight. My inspection sticker is current and up to date. The reflective stickers and lettering are all present and tight, as well as the reflectors. Underneath here I have an air dryer. The air dryer and air tanks are not cracked or broken or leaking. Their nuts and bolts are present and tight. Their lines and fittings are not cracked, frayed, or missing, and they're tight. The exhaust system is not cracked or broken or missing. It has no soot trails. Their clamps and hangers are tight, and all the screws and bolts are tight. The drive shaft is not bent or broken. Its screws are tight. The carrier bearings and universals are tight. There's nothing caught in the universal. All the screws are tight on there, as well as on the hangers that catch that. They're not broken or missing, and they're tight. The rear end is not leaking. Its nuts and bolts are tight. The air lines and the ABS line is not cracked, frayed, or missing, and their clamps are present and tight. The brake chamber is not cracked, broken, leaking, rusted, and its nuts and bolts are tight. The push rod and slack adjuster is not cracked, broken, or leaking, and there is no more than 1 inch of play at a 90-degree angle. Their nuts and bolts are tight. Brake drums and brake linings are not illegally welded or cracked or broken. There's more than 1/4 inch or more of lining on the brakes. The spring hanger back here is a C-spring hanger. It is not cracked, broken, or missing. It's tight. The Z-spring and the torque arm are not cracked or broken, not missing, and their nuts and bolts are present and tight. The U-bolts are not cracked or broken. Their nuts are tight. The shock absorber is not cracked or broken or leaking. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. And again, I'm looking at the frame here, back there, frontwards and backwards to make sure that there's nothing looser or nuts and bolts are missing, and there's no cracks or illegal welds. We go to the tires. There's 2 back here. They're dual tires. I have no buds or spacers. There's nothing caught between the tires. There is no cracks or bulges on any of the sides, no cuts. There's even tread across, and there's 2/30 seconds of tread left. The rim is not cracked or broken or bent. It's not illegally welded. The lug nuts are tight. There is no rust trails. The flange seal or the axle seal is tight. It's not leaking, and its bolts are tight. The mud splash guard is not cut or hanging, and its bolts are tight. We continue to look at the overall appearance of the bus to make sure that there's nothing I've missed. Go to the back door here, and I am going to start checking my lights. I have a strobe light on top. I have clearance lights, yellow student, red student, turn signals in 4-ways, stops, brake lights, reverse lights, and tail lights. None of the lenses are cracked or broken or missing. The screws are present and tight. The windows are not cracked or broken. There's no gaps in the seals. The reflective stickers and the reflectors and the lettering are all tight. They're not peeling or missing. and open this door, it's going to have an alarm turn on or sound, and the lights will turn on. The door opens freely. The catch works. My floor is clean. The seal on the door is complete. There are no gaps. And the hinge is not cracked, broken, or missing, and its bolts are tight. I'll look one more time down under the frame. It is not cracked, broken, bowed, and its nuts and bolts are present and tight. This is the fuel door. It opens freely on its hinge. It's not cracked or broken. The cap is tight, not missing. Underneath here, the cage is not cracked or broken or missing, and all of its nuts and bolts are present tight. The straps are not missing, and they're not broken, and their bolts are tight. The fuel tank itself is not shifted, and it is not leaking. The fuel lines are not cut, cracked, or frayed, and their clamps are present and tight. I would check the tire, the suspension, the brake system, the same on this side as I did on that side. Move to the front of the bus. I have 6 things to check up here. There's no moisture on my engine. There is, all my electrical wiring is tight, not cut or frayed, and the connections are tight. The alternator is not cracked or broken. Its bolts are tight. The water pump is not leaking. It's not cracked or broken. Its bolts are tight. It is belt driven. There is no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inches of play in my belt. The belt itself is not cut or frayed. The turbo back here is not cracked, broken, leaking. Its nuts and bolts are present and tight. Any hoses or lines on it as well are not cracked, frayed, or leaking. And their fittings are tight. Enough washer fluid for my trip. The tank itself is not cracked or broken or leaking. The nuts and bolts are present and tight. And it's again tied to the frame. And the frame, I would look the same over here, as well as the tires, the suspension, and the brake systems on this side. So now we get to close up our engine. The door opens freely on its hinge. It's not cracked or broken or missing or leaking. The
seal.
Thank you. Seal is not missing, and it is tight. The floor tread is not lifted or missing, and the screws are tight. The handrails have no catch points. They're tight. The light here itself, we'll check the light for it being on a little bit, but the screws are tight and it's not cracked or broken. I come into the bus. I'm going to check the seats. The seat backs are tight. There's no cuts or writing or tears in the seat backs. My aisleway is clear. There's no lifted tread. The trim plates are tight to the floor with screws. They're all tight. There's no light space around my door. All of the seals there are no gaps in the window or the door. I'm looking at all the instructions and lettering here and at the exits on the roof or the sides. None of it is missing and none of it is peeling. The seat bottoms are tight. There's no rips or tears. The floor, they're tight to the floor with no screws broken or missed. If I were to check the roof hatch, I would check this one and the one in front the same. I would turn the latch, push it open, an alarm and the light would sound and the lights would come on. I would check both the same. I have 2 side windows. They get checked the same. Again, I'll open this up. The lights will come on, the alarm will sound, and it opens freely. Check both of those the same. I'm come up here to the emergency equipment. Here's my first aid box. It has 24 units and 3 emergency cards. My body fluids kit is fully stocked. Both are tight in their mounts with all bolts and nuts and screws tight. My emergency road box has 6 fuses and 3 triangles. It is tight in its mount. The fire extinguisher is tight in its mount. It's current and up to date and fully charged. The seat is not ripped or cracked or torn. Its screws and bolts are tight to the floor. There's no loose mechanisms on the seat. I'm going to sit in the seat. My seat will be adjusted to me. My seat belt is not cut or frayed. It retracts freely. latches and unlatches freely. I'm going to do a safe start. I'm going to turn the key on. My ABS light will come on and cancel, and I'll wait for the computer to set. There's the ABS lights on. The computer is set. I'm going to start the bus. My engine is running smoothly. I'm going to get the air pressure up so I can begin my brake test, but while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to look at my pedals down here. The pads are tight and they're not missing. There are no obstructions for my feet. I'm going to wait for the governor to pop off. There it goes. I'm going to turn the bus off, and I'm going to begin my brake test. Again, the ABS light will come on and cancel as I turn the ignition on. I'm going to release the park brake. I will have an initial air loss. I will lose no more than 2 psi per minute afterwards. May I continue? Yes. I'm going to push the service brake. As I push the service brake, I'll have an initial air loss. I won't lose more than 3 psi per minute afterwards. May I continue? Yes. I'm going to continue to fan the brake. As I fan the brake at approximately 60 psi, the low air warning light and alarm will come on. There they are. I'm going to continue to fan at approximately 20 to 40 psi. The parking brake will engage. I'm going to restart the bus. The brake is going, or the air is going to continue to build. I'm going to put it into gear to test the park brake. Holding my foot on the brake, then releasing it and giving it a little bit of gas. And yes, it holds. In order to test the service brake, I would drive down the roadway approximately 15 miles an hour and lightly hold onto the steering wheel as I press the brake to see if it pulls left or right. That concludes my brake test. Radio for the base, this is the student radio, both are in working order. The transmission shifts freely, and when I put it in reverse, you'll hear an audible alarm. I'm going to read my gauges. My low oil is reading not hot, it should be below 60 pounds. The amps are charging, the volts are charging. My transmission is at 153, it should not be above 200. My air brakes are charging, they'll go up to 120 and pop off. My coolant is below 200. I'm going to turn on my headlights and my backlight on the dash will light. There they are. I'm going to go through the switches. Left and right heaters, high and low. Rear heater. My door, if it was over there shut, it would be open and closed as freely. Driver's dome is on and off. Student lights are on and off. My yellow indicator light is going to come on, and my door is open. Would you shut that, please? Just that valve right there, would you just push it? My yellow indicator light is going to come on. There it is. And now the red indicator light will come on for student pickup. There they are. My emergency override indicator light will come on. My master switch on and off, which controls those. Noise suppression on and off. My defroster is high, low, and medium. My strobe light on and off. My heated mirrors on and off. My overhead fans left and right. Right and left. Go back over here, I have a high beam indicator. There it is. I have left turn signal indicator and a right turn signal indicator and a four-way indicator. There they are. Windshields, wipers are in good condition. There is not cut or frayed, and they work, and the wiper fluid works as well. The steering has no more than 2 inches of play, and the horn works. There's no cracks or breaks in the windshield. There's no fogging, and there are no obstructions in my vision. The mirrors, all of the mirrors, overhead and the sun visor, are adjusted to me. There's no cracks or cuts in the mirror, and all their screws are present tight, no knots. Would you help me check my lights?
Yes.
You ready to start now? Okay. As you go out the door, notice that the step-well light is on and it is working properly. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to watch for you to get clearance and tail lights. Student yellows. Student reds. Brake lights. Reverse lights. Left turn. Right turn. Four ways. Okay, they're walking to the front of the bus. They're at the front of the bus. Clearance lights. Left turn. Right turn. Four ways. Student yellow. Student red. Headlights. High beams. Okay, I'm going to let the door open so they can come back inside.